Welcome to Growing Up Beverly Hills. I'm Stacy.
And I'm David. We grew up together in Beverly Hills in the 1980s.
Forget what you've seen in the movies or TV shows. We have the real stories about real people growing up in Beverly Hills.
Here's a little known fact for you. There aren't any talking chihuahuas.
Beverly Hills folk drop a lot of names of people and places.
We just can't help it.
Don't worry, we'll explain it all at the end of the interview in the Beverly Hills Breakdown.
Enjoy, subscribe, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Hey, Stacy, we've got Nancy Radin on our show for this episode.
If you went to Beverly Hills High School, you might know her by her maiden name, Nancy Fishman. She graduated from Beverly in 1970, and not too long after came back to teach there in the drama department.
The drama department was huge at Beverly, and as Nancy says in the interview, about a quarter of the kids in the entire school were a part of it in one way or another.
We had a big theater, and each year there were numerous productions, including a big musical with elaborate sets and set changes, and a live orchestra.
They were very professional. There were also plays, and the school competed in a statewide Shakespeare festival.
Nancy taught at Beverly for 10 years and talks about her experience there with John Engel, who was the head of the drama department.
Nancy and the other teachers had a profound influence on so many kids, and so many of those kids are now big shots in show business.
Nancy talks about all her time at Beverly and also her fight against cancer, and how she uses her friends and humor to get through it. Even when she got a horrible diagnosis, she kept working and creating, and she hasn't stopped.
Let's listen.
Let's listen. Nancy Radin, welcome to Growing Up Beverly Hills.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, a lot of our audience might know you as Nancy Fishman, and you probably taught them or went to school with them.
That's true. I did. Both.
Thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you. Well, this is exciting.
So, Nancy, how did your family first come to Beverly Hills?
Well, we lived in Chicago, and my mom's family already lived in California. So when I was 12 years old, I was just starting the 8th grade. We moved to Beverly Hills, and I went to Beverly Vista with a lot of friends that I still have, which is just amazing.
Oh, that's so cool. So I went to Beverly Vista too. So
right.
You also stayed friends with a lot of your friends from BV.
Absolutely. Yeah. And a lot of my friends from high school and many students.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it really, really was and is.
So you came into the Beverly school system pretty late as
Yes.
far as Beverly Hills goes. What was that experience like? Were you?
Well, the first year was a little bit of an adjustment coming from the south side of Chicago to Beverly Hills. It was light years different.
Sure.
And it took me a little while to adjust. But, you know, like any kid, once I made my friends, it was wonderful. And the people that I made friends with in 8th grade are still wonderful friends of mine. I've been really blessed in my friendship life. So many of my students have come back into my life because of Facebook.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And a number of years ago, my mentor and colleague, John Engel, passed away.
John was head of the drama department at Beverly for many years and just a beloved teacher.
Yes.
There was a memorial service for him at the high school that Joel Pressman and some of the other students organized. And it was just tremendous. There must have been over 500 people that showed up.
Wow.
And they were, most of them were former students.
Sure.
So it was, you know, a very bittersweet day. We were all terribly sad about John's passing and all just adored him. And I did in particular. He was like a second father to me.
He was really a legendary teacher at Beverly.
Oh, legendary. I mean, John Engel was the most charismatic person I have ever met in my life.
He seemed incredible.
He was incredible. And, you know, I was just so blessed that he took me under his wing and invited me to come and do my student teaching at Beverly. And
Incredible.
then he hired me before I got my credential, but he hired me to come in and work with the kids in the afternoon. And then he hired me, and it was just I think it was an amazing era in the Beverly High Performing Arts Department. The staff was incredible. We just had such amazing people like John and Joel Pressman, Richard Farmer, who did the band, and Bonnie Miller, who did forensics, and Jackie O'Neill, who was our pianist full time. I mean, what school has that?
I've never heard of it.
Right.
It doesn't exist.
Exactly. How did it start, though, Nancy? When you first came as a student at Beverly Hills High, were you playing sports, or did you want to go right into the drama department? How did you fall in love with drama and make the connection with Mr. Engel?
Well, it was the very first day of my freshman year at Beverly. I was 14 years old. And there was a room that we used. We had the little theater and the choral room, but there was a little room that we used called 176. And it was just a funky classroom. And I just fell in love with theater and John and the program my very first day.
Wow.
And I said to myself, I want to come back and I want to teach drama here one day.
Wow.
And I did. I set it as a goal, and somehow it worked out.
That's pretty rare in life.
Oh, it was. I mean, I tell people, find your passion and figure out a way of making a living doing that.
Yeah.
And you're never working. You're always doing what you love.
Exactly. That's probably the best advice you could ever give to any person or student.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it worked for me, and it certainly has worked for many people that I know. But John was instrumental in my life. And I still choke up just talking about him.
Did you make an early connection personally with him at this young age?
Well, I did when I took his class, but at the time I was actually more interested in sports. And I was playing on softball and basketball and volleyball. I mean, I was on all the sports teams.
Oh, wow.
And I really enjoyed that. And I knew I'd come back to drama, and I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But, you know, that was my focus at the time. And then when I went to UCLA, John taught a class in teaching high school drama.
At UCLA?
At UCLA, which of course I took.
Oh.
And that's kind of how we reconnected. It was through that class that he invited me to come and do my student teaching and be an aide and then a teacher there. So it was very instrumental.
We just knew John in the 80s. What was he like back then? I mean, we know him as kind of a gray-haired older guy, and he was super charismatic. And then I think he started acting professionally all the time about the time we were graduating.
That's right. It was in the mid-'80s.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And he decided he wanted to retire early. They offered what was called a golden handshake at that time, which I always thought was counterintuitive because you're losing some of your wonderful, amazing teachers that have been there for decades. He decided that he'd had enough teaching, which he'd done for many, many years. And he wanted to become a professional actor. And so he would go out, he got an agent, and he would go out on calls during the day. And he would say, "Hey, Nance, can you cover my period 5-6? Hey, Nance, can you cover my period 7-8? And
he was older then. He was, how old was he?
I think he retired when he was 57.
Oh, wow.
Well, I take it back. He was very young.
He was young. Yeah. He was a child,
looked older.
Right? Wasn't he an infant?
Yeah, and I think he played usually got the part of like the 70-year-old preacher
Grandpa
or something.
He did. He was so distinguished looking.
Yeah.
And he had this amazing booming voice and this gray hair and this charisma. And, it just happened almost immediately for him.
Wow.
And we were all thrilled that he was, making his way in his new career, but we were so sad to lose him.
Yeah.
It was a major loss. And, but he went on and had, I think, a couple of decades of active work.
Yeah, just great stuff.
It just got better and better and better for him.
Mm-hmm. And, amazing.
Yeah, quite a legendary man.
So did he have dark hair when he was teaching you?
When I was he was a young, he probably was in his 30s, 40s.
30s.
So, he was tall, thin, and his hair gradually grayed over the years. And I think he just became better and better looking and more handsome and charismatic, as time went on.
I would agree.
He was quite an inspiring person and inspired not only myself, but as you know, dozens and dozens.
Yeah, I don't know if we'd have so many famous actors from Beverly without him, right?
Yeah, probably.
Probably from that era. That's probably true. Yeah, I'm just it's a who's who, honestly. Yeah. I couldn't even begin to mention them all, but as you know, we had David Schwimmer and John Silverman and John Turteltaub and Jason, who became Max Munchnick.
Yep.
You were in school basically in the 60s.
Yeah, I graduated in 70. I was a year younger than my class because I had skipped a year.
So what was Beverly like in the 60s? Was it affected by all the drugs and rock and roll and everything happening?
Of course. I mean, it was affected by everything. Fashion. Mm-hmm. It was a fashion statement of mini skirts.
Right.
That was the era back then. And gosh, it was a great fashion era.
Yeah, it must have been great with all the prints and the go-go boots and the mini skirts.
Oh my God. It was it was like People magazine.
It must have been a fun dance at the swim gym that year.
Oh my God. It was just it was really it was an amazing era. And one of the things that really stands out to me the most of that time in my life is the music.
Oh, yes.
Didn't the Doors play at the Beverly?
The Doors played at Beverly. I think I was a freshman, and
my God.
I think Cream and
oh my God,
a couple of other. That became the function of the student body, was to get these rock and roll concerts happening.
Wow,
that's so cool. Because we had Oingo Boingo our year.
Oh, okay. I couldn't tell you.
They're not quite the Doors.
I'm sorry.
They weren't the Doors or Cream, but
yeah. So the music was just an amazing part of that decade.
What was that like for your parents? Were you kind of seen in rebellion to them, or?
I had wonderful parents. My parents were
they cool?
They were cool. They were just wonderful. They were supportive. My mom would come in and listen to the music with me.
Oh, wow.
And close the door to my bedroom and put on headphones, and we would just rock out.
Oh, fun.
It was fun. She was a very cool lady and very funny. And my dad was just very tolerant. And
what did your parents do?
Well, my dad had a cleaning business, different stores around Los Angeles. And he had one in the Brentwood Country Mart that I worked for him there for a while. He had another one on Little Santa Monica Boulevard where the Pier 1 moved in. That used to be his space.
Oh, wow.
And that's it. I came from a modest background. I did not come from an affluent background at all, but I came from an incredibly loving and supportive family with a tremendous sense of humor, which to me has been, a blessing. Yeah. A real blessing. I think that's one of the most important things that you need to carry with you throughout life, because, things happen to all of us, and it's how we handle those things that makes the difference.
Exactly. I fully agree with you about that.
Yeah.
So every class at Beverly has its own crop of famous kids or kids from famous parents. How about your year?
In the 1970s.
In the 70s?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because you're right after Rob Reiner and Richard Dreyfuss and Albert Einstein. Weren't they your age, or?
No. Those guys
they're older.
They graduated around 64, 65. My cousin Dawn graduated with them. I think that was John's first class.
Oh, wow.
So I don't think he had all of those people. But Albert Brooks and Rob Reiner and, you know, all the folks that you just mentioned, and Carol Ida White.
Oh,
she's wonderful, a phenomenal comedian. She was on Laverne and Shirley for a long time.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There were just tons.
Maybe Lorraine Newman?
Lorraine was in my class. Yes.
Oh, wow.
She was very funny. She, at the time, had really bad scoliosis.
Oh.
And I remember that she wore a brace throughout high school. And she used her humor, I think, as a way of getting through that, like we were just talking about.
Yeah, to get through the day.
I remember being at slumber parties with her, and she would just be a total riot.
Really?
We would do these skits, you know, and she was always hilarious and funny. It was an amazing time and an amazing place, and I don't think that kind of environment could ever really exist again, because Beverly Hills at the time was a real hub for performers to live in. Mm-hmm. You know, and when I taught there, we had Don Rickles, Mindy. Did you?
Yeah, we just interviewed Mindy.
She was wonderful. She was very quiet and very shy at the time.
She told us that, yeah.
Yeah, and she was in my class, and I was directing one of Neil Simon's plays called The Good Doctor, which is based on vignettes by Anton Chekhov. And she was a riot.
Really?
I gave her some roles that just allowed her to be zany and crazy. And I remember her dad sitting in the audience, just kind of overwhelmed and stunned. I think he was more stunned than anything to see her, you know, just blossom and fly like that.
That must have been cool, because you actually got to teach the daughter of, and then the main star, Don Rickles, is watching out in the audience. I mean, and that was probably student after student.
It was like that.
Had.
Yeah, especially those musical performances. And, you know, you would see Florence Henderson and Shirley Jones and
all of them, because we had Ryan Cassidy's in our class.
Yeah, we had all the Cassidys.
Yeah, we had Jolie Fisher and Trisha Fisher. So
Jolie's a dear friend of mine.
Oh, she's fabulous.
She's phenomenal. We got together a couple of years ago, and I wrote a book.
Yes, we'll talk about that.
And she, you know, did some PR work for me on my book, and we got together a number of times. She's just lovely and talented.
She is incredibly talented. Yeah. The talent that these people have are quite incredible. It just amazes me that they can act and sing and dance and are
They're
funny at the same time. I mean, there's so many threats.
So many threats. And they were like that. I mean, the caliber of talent that we were fortunate to work with was superb. It was beyond compare. And
did you know at the time? Because I know that you worked with the Shakespeare Fest. Like, did you know you guys had like extraordinary talented group of young
the kids
people?
Would always win almost every competition, but they worked so hard. I mean, people would say, oh, it's because they're from Beverly. That's not what it was about. I mean, I personally sat there and worked with those kids every single day for 2 months after school.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so they were. And
it was their passion. I mean, they took it more seriously than anything at school.
Absolutely. It was one of the programs at school that was the most highly coveted.
And also, Nancy, I think you mentioned like the kids like almost lived in the performing arts department.
Oh, they did. They'd come in the morning at, 8 or 7:30, whatever. They'd drop their backpacks on our tables. They'd, down a donut and they'd go to classes. And then they for nutrition and for lunchtime, every break that they had, the kids would be back in our department, and they just couldn't wait until, the rehearsals began.
Isn't that wonderful?
In the afternoon. It was superb.
It's so amazing with the impact that you personally made on the lives of these students. It sounds like you personally and John and the rest of your team were so close with them personally. And just what an experience to know how much you put into the students and what a reward.
Well, it is rewarding for me, and it's especially rewarding now. I mean, all these years later, that I still have contact with so many of them. It means the world to me, honestly.
It really is quite incredible.
It was a family environment.
Yeah.
And we were the parents.
Isn't that amazing?
We had 500 kids in our program, which was, what, a quarter of the school?
Yep, for sure.
Is that about right?
Yeah, that is.
Every day was an adventure, and there was really never a time where we weren't in awe of what we had to work with. And it was so inspiring. And the kids were amazing. I mean, they did everything that we asked. You know, they brought their brain and their heart and their energy and their courage, you know, every day to get on stage and do what was asked of them. And they did it with love and joy.
Mm-hmm. I have one quick question about the performing arts department. Not only did you teach the actors how to act and all that, but you taught lighting and gaffing and sound. Like those students learned all of that. So you could leave Beverly and probably get a job after school.
A lot of kids did.
Yeah.
You know? And if they didn't go into acting, as you know, many of them became writers, directors. They took this high school experience with them and they turned it into a life of work.
God, that's so, I wish I was in the drama department.
You know, I'd like to go back and be a student of mine.
I would too. I would love you to be, I would love you to be my teacher.
Oh, I'd love to do that. I just loved teaching.
When you first started teaching, what was it like to come back to the high school that you went to? Was it like,
Welcome Back, Kotter? Do you remember that TV show?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Because you were just around their age. You weren't that much older.
I was not. When I started working for John, I was maybe 24.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And the seniors were 18. So,
About 5 years.
I think that was one of the things that was a little bit special about my relationship personally with the kids was John, of course, was this amazing father figure.
Mm-hmm.
But I was close to their age. And so the girls felt really comfortable confiding in me. You know, I heard so many romance stories. You cannot broken hearts.
All day long.
All day long. Yeah.
Could you see a considerable shift in how kids were or how times were changing, or it just wasn't that long of a gap?
Well, when I first started teaching, it was not that long of a gap. And when I left, I was married and I had 2 kids. So, my life had changed.
Yeah.
But, I'm still friends with these people.
How long were you a teacher at Beverly?
Around 10 years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And then we moved up north. I hated leaving Beverly. I really did.
I'm sure. Why did you end up leaving to move up north?
Mostly for my husband's work. He got some really good, he was an attorney and an MBA, and he got some good offers to move up there. And it was at the time, the smog, I don't know if you remember that.
I remember.
It was unbelievable. And we just wanted to get into a cleaner environment.
Yep.
So we moved up to Marin County, which is the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yes. The pretty side.
Oh my gosh. It's so beautiful. And we had a house on the water with boat docks, and my kids just loved it. My son's a huge sailor now.
Oh, wow.
Because of that. And, I did a lot of theater up here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your early life when you moved up north.
I started teaching at ACT, American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco. I taught there for about 5 years, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And I worked with the same age group, high school and younger.
Yep. And
then I started programs in Marin County at the schools where my kids went to school. And I directed a number of shows. Oliver.
Oh, wow.
The first flying production of Peter Pan with kids ever.
Wow.
I called them and I said, I'm doing, an elementary school production and I want the kids to fly. And they said, I'm sorry, we don't fly kids. And I said, no, you don't understand. I mean, this is a really professionally run organization. And they said, we don't fly kids. And I said, will you just please come out and look at what we're doing? And they came out and they, watched a rehearsal for an hour and they said, we're in.
I love it.
So we had the first children's flying production of Peter Pan, which was just amazing. I had 300 kids in the production. Every kid, this was something that I learned from John, going back to John.
Sure.
John was so inclusive.
Yeah.
Some teachers are exclusive.
Yeah.
They get their tiny little group and that's it. And if you're not in that group,
you're out.
You're out. And I learned how to include everybody. So any kid who wanted to work, whether it was in the show or tech, I had kids running lights and soundboards. I mean, little kids doing this
Incredible
stuff.
though.
And I remember one time I went outside for intermission just to get a quick cup of coffee.
Yep.
And when I came back, they had started without me. And I thought, at first I was a little, miffed. And then I thought, wow, this is the best thing ever.
Right.
To teach kids that they can just go on their own and do it.
Well, how rewarding.
It was just really an amazing experience. And so I kept doing that for a number of years.
Were there certain students that you could tell just had it and you knew they'd be famous?
Well, of course.
Okay.
They were all so gifted.
I mean, how about Johnny went from literally hanging in the hallways with us to Broadway?
Silverman? You talking about Silverman? I'll tell you how that happened because I'm the one who checked him out of school.
Oh my God, tell us.
Yeah,
I thought I helped him get out of the attendance office.
Oh, did you? He came to me, because many of our students were working actors.
Right.
And so many of them would leave during the day, do an audition and come back. Mm-hmm. And I remember I was teaching an afternoon drama class that Johnny was in, and he came up to me and said, Nancy, I have to go to an audition. And I said, good luck, break a leg. And he left and he came back. The class was still in session. It wasn't very long.
Right.
And he came back with a checkout card for the school year.
Oh my God, the whole year?
For the whole year. And he goes, I need you to sign my checkout card. And I looked at him and I said, where are you going? And he said, I got the job. I'm going to Broadway.
Oh my
God.
He went right from the classroom.
I literally.
Literally to Broadway.
Well, it was unbelievable because we were good friends.
Working for Neil Simon.
That's Simon. Right. Brighton Beach Memoirs and Broadway Bound. And he did the Broadway version and then he did the movie version. Yeah. And we always referred to that, my experience with John as flukedom. Yeah. It was so fluky.
It was.
That he left and came back and that was the end. And he went on to, and of course, at the time, his best friend was David Schwimmer. I think they're still good friends. I've probably haven't talked to them in a while, but that was my understanding. And then, of course, David went on to blow us all away.
All of us away.
I mean, all of us. He just was so incredible. David Schwimmer was the first person I knew who had a computer.
Really?
Oh, wow.
The very first person. And I remember I was editing and redoing a script that the kids were going to perform for something. And, back then we had to start and we had whiteout.
Right.
And he said, Nancy, give it to me. I'll take it home and I'll do it. And he came back like 20 minutes later.
Oh my God.
And it was all redone. And I said, how'd you do this? And he said, well, it's called word processing.
Oh, wow. I knew he was smart too.
He was really smart.
Well, he was thinking about becoming a doctor. We learned from another guest of ours who they were both kind of thinking pre-med.
Oh, really? Pre-med? I thought he would go into law because I thought both of his parents were lawyers and he was very articulate and incredibly smart. But he loved drama and he was just terrific at everything that he did and totally dedicated. And a nice person, a really nice guy.
Yeah, super nice guy. He just kept plugging away and then got the role of a lifetime.
He really did. I love that show. That is my favorite show. The best.
Sure.
The best show ever, Friends. Ross, we love Ross.
Ross, they were all terrific. I mean, that whole cast was, ensemble was amazing. I never got tired of watching David.
Oh, how cool.
He was so amazing. And it was just in my mind, I see somebody performing on stage or in film or television. And for many, many years, every time we went to a movie, the movie would get over, my husband would get up and I'd go, no, wait, I have to watch the credits. That's what I went for.
Right. Unlike everyone else, got to go before the credits.
I'm sure your family's like, yeah, I know you taught him and her.
My kids are so sick of hearing about.
They're like, we know, Mom.
We know, Mom.
Well, we're not sick of hearing about it. So maybe you started around the John Turtletop.
Oh yeah, I had both of those guys. Yeah.
So I remember them. They were kind of the big shots when I first entered high school, and they were kind of kings of the drama department.
They were both wonderful. I got to see John Turteltaub about 5 years ago. He was being inducted into the Beverly Hills Hall of Fame, and I got to induct him.
That's so cool.
It was really fun. It was wonderful. And I got a group of his classmates together, and they would get up and they would sing little pieces from all the shows that he was in. And then I got to give him his Letterman's jacket, which of course every big man on campus needs to have.
You have to have, you got to have it.
Got to have your Letterman's jacket, even if it's 30 years later.
Got to have it.
And John Travis was there that night. A lot of the kids that I had in a show I did called The Little Prince, it was children's theater. And we took it around to the elementary schools, which was really fun. Yeah. And Travis was in that, as well as a lot of the other kids that were there. I want to give a shout out, if it's okay.
Please,
of course.
Shout it out.
I want to shout out to all of the kids that I taught, and the ones I went to school with, and the staff who are still with us, Richard and Rick Munitz and Jackie O'Neill. Josh Finkel was a student of ours who went on to Broadway. And he did Kiss of a Spider Woman, Les Mis, and Phantom of the Opera on Broadway with Karen Feynman.
Wow.
Who was another one of our triple talents. A beautiful, incredibly talented woman. Josh got this group together on Zoom. And I'd also like to thank the two people who gave me my start in my,
please do.
My BFF forever. Her name is Vicki Israel, and she just retired. She ran all of the Parks and Rec for Los Angeles. And she hired me when I was in college to teach kids. And then my friend Pat Adnich, who ran the Beverly Hills classes, hired me to teach. I taught at Roxbury Park in the elementary schools. And that's how I really got my start in teaching.
So in 2002, your life, from understanding, your life dramatically changed.
Yes.
And put you onto a journey, Nancy, that you actually are still currently on.
Yes.
I know that in 2002 you went to the doctor and they diagnosed you with cancer. Stage 4, and gave you 18 months to live. And that was 20 years ago.
Almost 20 years ago.
Can you tell us about your journey?
Oh, of course. I've become a real advocate for cancer patients over the years. And I talk to a lot of people. Of course, it's a very terrifying diagnosis. And I was diagnosed at stage 4, which is as bad as it can get.
How old were you, Nancy?
I was 49.
Okay.
And my kids were young teenagers. And wow, I went to the doctor just for a routine gynecological exam, and he discovered a tumor in my breast, and I immediately flew down to Los Angeles to UCLA.
Right.
And then I went to MD Anderson. I believe in being your own advocate.
Yeah.
And I believe the reason that I'm still alive is because I just kept pursuing treatment after treatment after treatment. And I'm still here. My disease has not progressed beyond being in my bones, which is a problem. It's in my spine, and it makes it difficult for me to do certain things. Walking is hard for me. But it hasn't affected my emotions, my brain, any of that. And so I've been on all kinds of treatments. I've been everywhere. And I've done in the box, out of the box. I believe in throwing it all up on the ceiling and seeing what sticks. And hopefully something significant sticks. And I was lucky. I'm in a position now that I don't know what stuck, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here. So I wrote a screenplay about my experience.
Right.
To my astonishment, one night I turned on the television and my phone started ringing off the hook, and people started saying, you sold your screenplay. I did. And I said, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? And I turned on the TV and there was my screenplay.
Your story.
My story.
My gosh.
All of the minor details that no one else could have possibly come up with, let alone someone who didn't have cancer.
Right.
I don't know that you can, I mean, think of what it's like to turn on the television and see your life.
I can't even imagine.
It was the most bizarre experience I've ever had in my life.
So how did that happen? I know that you were writing your story.
I was writing, and when I was in treatment at UCLA, I started taking some writing classes. I mean, I already had graduated. I already had a master's degree in teaching credentials, but I love to write. Mm-hmm. And I took some classes, and as it turned out, some of my teachers
sent your stuff somewhere else.
I got no credit. I got no money.
Wow.
I got nothing. And it was just really, really devastating because it was such a personal story.
Yeah. And I know that you had parts in there, you know, you wrote a Vespa, and I know the
everything that was,
all these little minor things that were
Cordon Bleu, cooking
Cordon
school.
Bleu.
I wanted to send my son to Cordon Bleu. That was another thing it was just one thing after the next.
Wow. So many details.
All the details. And my sister, Linda, whose birthday is today. Happy birthday, Linda.
Happy
I love
birthday,
you.
Linda.
We'll be a little belated.
It's okay. One day. So she really has been my support throughout these years.
Incredible.
And she was the one who really called and said, you got to fight this. This isn't right. And so I took it to court. I lost because of a technicality, the technicality being what is the definition of infringement. Oh. So I wrote my book, and there is a chapter in there about how infringement works and how people get away with that if anybody's interested.
What's the name of your book?
My Big C, still here after all these years.
I read it. It was very
good.
You did?
Oh, I did. Thank you. Yay.
It was very, very good. I got a lot of information and learned a lot about you. So
thank you.
It was a great story.
Well, I'm happy. I believe in laughing, as we discussed.
Yeah.
And I tried to spin as much as I could of my story into comedy, because actually a lot of it's funny. I mean,
it is. No, it was definitely, you can find the humor and the joy in your story, even through the tragedy,
Right. And that crazy scene I had a scene in the book. I'm going to tell you, Stacey, because you read it.
Tell me.
Okay. There's a scene where I go to pick up my scans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're sitting right there. I can see my name on the envelope. And the woman won't give them to me. She said, you have to come back. You have to wait in line. Come back tomorrow. And I said, I need them for my appointment tomorrow. And she wouldn't give them to me. So I just let it rip. Yeah. And I went ballistic. Yeah. And that's the scene that Mindy Rickles played for me. A crazy, bizarre. I put Mindy in my book.
I love it.
And that was the way she responded in the play that we did. And I thought that worked. It was great.
That's great.
I got my scans.
And I wanted to punch that lady in the face too. What a bitch.
Oh, I love you, Stacy.
I love you too.
Getting that first diagnosis, and how do you deal with that and with the kids, and how does that first year go?
For me, it was horrifying. My husband left.
Yeah. It was one horrible thing after the next, Nancy.
Awful thing after the next. And I got through it by laughing as much as I could and by having the amazing support of my family.
Yeah. Didn't you have to dig down deep and like where did you find your strength to say, I'm going to write a different story here?
Well, my strength was the fact that I had 2 kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had to keep going. It was not an option for me.
You're right.
I had to raise those kids. And that's where I put my focus in life.
Yeah.
And I also started a theater company that I ran out of. I had a three-car garage in Tiburon. Yes. And these people would come into my house every day, every night, and we'd be working on these hilarious plays. My neighbors would come listening at the garage door, to the laughter, and they go, "Can we get?" No, you got to wait. Yeah. And so my community of friends, I have a phenomenal, and I want to give a shout out to them too, because I have just the best friends, and they are the ones who really just kept me going with laughter.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like that. So it was my kids. It was trying to be able to laugh and, just this sense of I'm moving forward. My life is different. It's changed forever. I may not be able to do some of the things that I did before, but I'll find new things to do. Yeah. And that's when I started writing my book. Yeah. And it took me about 10 years, which is a long time, but I had a lot of stuff to process.
Yeah, I was going to say, in order to get it onto paper, you had to really go back and look at everything and probably just relook at your whole every day of your life.
Every day of my life.
Yeah.
Yes, every day. And it really does this is cliche and people say it all the time, but you really do find out who are the important people in your life.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones who are there for you.
Exactly. You learn quickly who your friends are.
Very quickly.
Who you want in your life.
And I think that's true with any tragedy. Stacey, you and I talked a little bit.
Yes.
Those people make such a difference.
They're the only people that make a difference.
That's
people,
right.
I'm like, either you're out or you're with me. You're going to hold me and we're going to all get through this together because I need you and you need that. You know what I mean? And your friends hold you and carry you through.
Oh, I have a wonderful group of friends up here. They've been in my theater productions. We used to go camping every year together on the river up in Stanislaus and bring our kids with, and 50 people camping together. It was just
wonderful,
amazing, wonderful experiences, wonderful experiences. But I have to say, I really do miss LA. I love LA. I miss my family and friends that are down there, and I have, over the course of the years, gone down back to live in LA for, a couple years at a time. But now that I'm grandma.
Yep.
And I have these 2 incredibly amazing, beautiful, wonderful little grandkids. My grandson, Jaxie, is 3.
Aww.
And my granddaughter, Ari, is a little over a year.
Aww.
And they are now in my life the thing that keeps me going and, thriving, focusing, laughing, playing. Being a grandparent has been the best experience of my life.
So we've heard. I'm not ready there yet, but I've heard.
I know. It's so much better than being a parent.
Oh, good.
You don't have any of the crap to deal with.
Oh, you're good. I'm looking forward, but not yet.
Did your kids get into acting?
My daughter actually did. I used to do some casting up here for some of my friends who were casting directors. And they asked me if I had a daughter. And I said, yeah, but she's never done any film. She's been in a lot of plays that I've directed, but she doesn't know the first thing about film. And they said, well, bring her in. We'd like to talk to her. And so they did. They cast her in, it was a movie with Robin Williams called Jack.
Oh,
and
great.
there were
Not bad.
and then really her first gig was with Disney and Robin Williams.
Yeah.
And so we were on the set there for about four months up here in Marin County, which Robin wanted to film up here because this is where his family was.
Yeah.
And that was just a fabulous experience.
Very cool. You must be so grateful for, getting that diagnosis and having all these experiences that.
Oh, when my son got married about 6 years ago, I couldn't speak. I was so moved.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that he was getting married, but the fact that I was there for it and never in a million years thought I would be. I have a wonderful family. I had a terrific career. I mean, I can't imagine having done anything that I would have loved or more or preferred to do. I mean, I got to do exactly what I wanted to do.
Incredible.
And it was as good as you thought it would be.
Yes, it was. I mean, I've just been blessed in almost every area. I mean, everybody's got things, but
we all have our shitty days. We all have shitty things happen. A lot of, it just happens. A lot of shit goes down in someone's life. And
it does.
Like you said, how you pick up the pieces and how the laughter and how you get through it is really the testament of a human. Really.
I think so too. I think you just have to. You can't give up and throw your hands up in the air.
No.
You just have to keep fighting.
Yeah.
And keep moving forward. And I do that, hopefully so that I can be of inspiration to other people who are going through this battle.
Yes.
Somebody who's newly diagnosed can pick up the telephone or email somebody who has been there and is still there.
Yes.
And, what can I do? What have you tried? It's just, it's a whole world in and of itself.
Exactly.
That takes learning to navigate through it and a certain amount of strength, I think. And like we talked about,
tremendous strength.
So what are you doing nowadays, Nancy? What are you
nowadays? I'm being a grandma, which I love. And I'm doing some writing with a friend of mine, working on another screenplay.
Good.
I can't really talk about it.
No.
Don't tell us.
I can't tell.
Don't tell anybody.
Right.
Don't tell anybody. We don't want to know.
You don't want to know. Okay. So that's a hush hush.
Yeah.
But my friend and I, she met me in Carmel a few weeks ago. She drove up from LA and I drove down and we started plotting out what we're going to write. And I'm very excited about it. I love writing.
That's
I really
great.
do.
Well, you're talented at that as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Your life and your journey has been, for some people would have, the way you have turned it around into joy and positivity and taking yourself day by day, moving forward through just unthinkable things that have happened is just so inspiring, Nancy. And
Stacey, you're too generous.
It's quite incredible.
True,
I mean,
for sure.
it's really true.
Well,
we all have hard times and, you definitely have gotten a couple extra ones, and how you come through it is just incredibly joyful, amazing, positive, and look at all the lives you've changed it's just incredible, Nancy. What an honor.
You're very sweet. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure having you on Growing Up Beverly Hills. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. You guys are adorable.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thank you.
Or Miss Fishman.
Bye.
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 It's time for the Beverly Hills Breakdown.
Woohoo! Here we go, David. Let's break it down.
Well, we talked about Nancy having such a big influence on so many kids, but if you don't believe Stacy and I, we have some special guests from our previous episodes who had Nancy as a teacher, and they talk about the impact she had Here's Mindy Rickles.
Hi, Nancy. If it wasn't for you directing me in The Good Doctor, I don't think I ever would have had the courage to do stand-up, which I really love. So I want to thank you so much for that. You were a wonderful teacher.
And now let's hear from Claudia Wells.
Hey, Nancy, it's Claudia Wells, your former drama student, and I remember you so well and how involved you always were with the Junior Drama Festival and the Junior Shakespeare Festival and your office that was always open. I think you're great, and I hope you're well and enjoying your retirement.
That was so awesome, David, having the students come back on and shout out to Nancy. I loved it so much.
Yep, we love you, Nancy, and so do all your old students.
What an impact she made. We love you, Nancy.
We talked a lot about John Ingle, but I wanted to give you some of his credits so you can go see some of his work. First of all, he was on General Hospital for a long time, from 1993 to 2012.
Wow.
And he played Edward Quartermain. Sounds very distinguished, like the man he was.
For sure.
I personally never watched General Hospital. One thing we both did really like and liked him in was Heathers, the movie, and he played the principal.
He certainly rocked in Heathers.
And then he had another really fun part. He got to play Robert Dunder of Dunder Mifflin on The Office.
No way! How great is that?
And he was even on an episode of Beverly Hills 90210.
Woohoo! He circled back right to home.
I bet he didn't have to do much research for that part.
Not at all.
Nancy also brings up John Turteltaub, or I do, but she talks about him.
She sure does.
I think him and John Travis, who I brought up, were starring in Oklahoma, was the musical that big musical our freshman year.
I remember.
And they were just great in it. I don't think John Travis went on to do acting. I don't know what he's doing, but John Turteltaub went on to produce and direct. And he got to reunite with his fellow classmate Nicolas Cage in all the National Treasure films.
Isn't that so fun? It must be fun to really work with the kids you grew up with. How fun.
Yeah.
So what was so interesting is a lot of the times you think people go straight to Hollywood. But here at Beverly High, we had a number of students that went straight from Beverly High to Broadway. We had our good friend Johnny Silverman, who was in our class, who literally went from the halls of Beverly to Brighton Beach Memoirs on Broadway in a Neil Simon play. Quite amazing.
Yes.
Then we talk about Karen Feynman, and as well as Josh Finkel, another student that went on to Broadway to do The Little Mermaid and The Kiss of the Spider Woman. So many incredible talents came out of Beverly, and Nancy Fishman, Nancy Radin, has taught them all.
Yep. Well, thank you all for listening. Remember to contact us on Facebook and Instagram. Follow us, like us, give us 5 stars, write a review.
Spread the love.
You can for us.
Help us out. Keep us growing. We don't want to beg, but we know you love the show, and keep telling your friends.
All right. Talk to you next time.
Keep listening, growing up Beverly Hills. Thanks.
Bye.
So suicide has personally affected my life, and we like to mention at the end of our show that there is help for everybody out there.
I think everybody's going through a tough time now, and we don't want anybody to take their lives.
Especially during this COVID situation, we've all been experiencing depression and hard times.
Things can always get better. Everything bad now can get better.
Everything can get better, and there is a lot of help out there. So please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. There is always help.
It doesn't hurt to call, so do that.
You don't have to do this alone. There's always help.